How's it going, everybody?
Good.
All right. I think last year about this day stood up here and said I was discouraged about how we played in the performance, and just said that wasn't us. And yesterday, that was us. The energy, the hitting, the ball hawking, flying around, and creating that speed. That is us, and that felt more like our style and attitude and how we want to play. So that was really cool to see. I think I said to you last week, this is a group of warriors that I'm certain will respond in the very best way, and I certainly saw that in a lot of instances in a lot of areas. But one thing that I definitely respect about them, there was never a time to point a finger at anybody else. We were all upset, myself included, but it was with ourselves, not with one another. And that part we took very seriously, and I was certain we'd have a better performance. So with all that, let's get it rocking.
Dan, David Moore, Dallas Morning News. As you were saying there, based on their history and what you've seen, you anticipated that response, but to see it to that level, how gratifying is it, and what does that say going forward? Does that give everyone even more confidence in this group?
Well, we didn't have a lack of confidence. We were certainly just so bummed about how it went. That said, I was certain, David, that we would respond the right way. I liked how the practice looked. I liked how getting into the game, the mindset to go. You never know how a game's going to go, and creating a takeaway to get a score, that kind of as one of the game changers. But the energy, the hitting, the speed, that part I knew would be right, and so that was good to see that for sure. And that just I don't know if it gave us confidence, maybe reassurance every time we go. That has to be the way we go, and speed and effort and finishing, and that's kind of the fun part that makes being part of this group a lot of fun.
Clarence Hill, Four-Star Telegram. That gave reassert just who you were, and how important was that going into this week's game with the 49ers team, with that run game and the challenge of Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuels?
Yeah, so I thought, because they've got, big line, two strong backs at New England, so I thought, coming in, we thought that would be one of the ways they would attack for sure, and certainly that's been the formula for San Francisco. You can see, the effectiveness of their start, not just in the run game, but scoring and finishing, and so certainly McCaffrey's been at the top of that list for sure. So we'll have our work cut out for us for sure, so I'm still getting into all the planning, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
I mean, McCaffrey's speed with what they're doing off, and how much of a difference has he made? It seems like you look at, I don't think they've lost the regular season games since he's been there.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good deal. It's a pretty good deal right there. It's fun, like they play a system that has guys playing multiple positions, and we do too. And they've got receivers that can play running backs can play receivers. We got some linebackers that can rush. We got some that can go down and back, and safeties that go down. So there's going to be all sorts of fun matchups in this game, and there'll be a lot of late nights and a lot of studying to go, because they really push you to prepare, and we'll do every bit of that. But we've got a group that moves guys around and does that in the same way. So I think there'll be some fun matchups that you'll see in the game.
Dan Todd, for the ESPN. DaRon Bland, what were your thoughts on him when he got here on his 30 visit and all those things, and then, 8 interceptions in 21 games? It's kind of hard to believe for a guy that was picked where he's picked.
Yeah, I think he's got such a remarkable story, doesn't he? Just from Sac State and then going down to Fresno. And I can remember Al going out there for his workout. He said, man, I think, this guy's we got one here. And so we ended up bringing him in. We drafted him. And so he was playing outside. But if you remember, we also started working him inside at nickel. It was probably around this time, maybe a little earlier. It was in camp, for sure. But he just was one that was always ready to be challenged and, go to the front of the line. And there wasn't anything that seemed too big for him. He may have had a, smaller school background, but he didn't come across that way. He came across ready to compete and go and push it, and really just took to the coaching. And so he's been such a, like you've heard me say, I think he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is a real competitor. But the anticipation, the ball skills to go with it, and he's just, somebody that we really count on. Obviously he plays two positions for us. He can go outside, he can go inside. And but I think the ball attributes, when we, Will and Jerry and Steven and the guys look for that, that's such a big piece of that, because you'll have a better chance of being a person who's got really ball production if you have some of that in your background where you can see it and demonstrate it, and so he certainly has it.
Todd.
Saad, he's the Athletic. Dan, just building off of that, DaRon, his first interception, he talked about, Mac made that throw earlier in the drive.
Yes.
He didn't want to let that happen again. Is that something that is kind of on his own accord? Do you kind of coach it up to be that way? How did that kind of happen?
You know, he's part of a really good group. There was a play yesterday where, you know, sometimes I'll make a call and the players will make the adjustment that they see fit for that time. I can specifically think of Jordan and JK yesterday, where the receiver was lying. They put him to the field, anticipating a motion to go. That's higher level football. You know, that's something that you wouldn't do on day one to say, okay, you go here, anticipating things that could happen. Those are not something that's in the playbook. And DaRon has a side of that to him as well. I think Al does a good job of showcasing what are some looks that could happen, how are some things to go, but then you do put it in your memory. There was a play, you know, across the field that was a throw that got completed, and if that came back again, you know, that's when you have to go capitalize. And he has the football smarts to remember a formation, to remember a situation, to go do that. I think that that came through yesterday.
Those ball hawking skills, he had 2 interceptions, could have had a third. You know, is that something, we talk sometimes about things that you can't teach. Is that something that's instinctual? Do you teach that? How does that happen for?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that is instinctual, and then you can add on to it. You know, to take someone from where they're at a good level to become at a great level, that's the extra push that takes place. And so when you come in with already a good skill set in a certain area, how do you go from good to being just excellent at it? And those are some of the work-ons that we talk about, whether they're on Wednesdays or Thursdays during the week. Hey, what's 1 or 2 things I want to work to get better at? But DaRon's always had that part of his game, and I think that will increase, you know, as we're going as well. But he really has good concentration, knows when to go take a shot, you know, to go make a play.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. Back to Bland for a second. How much does his demeanor mean a lot? Because corners get beat all the time, and they got to move on to the next play.
Yeah, and he's tough too. I'd say, like, DaRon could be a safety for us as well. Like, he's got that kind of makeup and tackling ability, and so that goes part of playing that position. You know, like the quarterbacks and the corners. You know, like they get everybody to see it. You know, on all the plays, and I've, you know, thought that's true. You know, on the offensive side for the quarterback and what happens, but it's also true on the defensive side where you're at a corner, and so you're going to get isolated, you're going to get targeted some, and so how do you respond and make plays on it? And it's the 50-50 balls that we take so much pride in. If somebody's going to throw it up on us, you know, we got a real shot to come down with it. So we work hard on the contested catches, not just the one that's, you know, a high one that you can go, but he's got a shot at it, I got a shot at it, how do I go attack it? And I think you probably saw that on the one yesterday where he ran through the catch, you know, on his touchdown. He wasn't sitting back waiting. He was going to go attack it, and that's his nature.
Joe.
Joe Wade, Lone Star Live. You guys lead the league in takeaways, obviously. Brock Purdy doesn't have an interception, you know, this year, has only 4 in his career. How much of a challenge, and I guess how important will it be to try to get takeaways against the offense that doesn't turn the ball over?
Yeah, they're really mindful of it. In the, you know, taking care of the ball as well. I think they've, you know, only have 1 for the entire season so far. So that shows you how they coach it, how they take care of it. And so, you know, both offenses are very good at that, you know, in terms of taking care of it and being aggressive, ours and theirs. So I think those will be the turning points in the game, you know, if we can knock one out or get one. But they've done a good job, and that shows over the first 4 games for sure.
If you look at their offense, a lot of the big runs happen with receivers blocking downfield, same with tight ends and fullbacks. Long question short, how important will be pursuit this game from all 11 guys?
Yeah, I think, you know, just knowing Kyle's nature, they want to attack, you know, the entire field. And so their wideouts are certainly down the field. If I remember correctly, and I wasn't scouting the game at the time, but if I remember, we might have been playing a night game, but they played a long run against Pittsburgh. And I can remember a receiver just hauling ass, getting downfield and getting a block. And that shows you the competitive nature of the group. And these are going to be 2 tough-ass, hard-nosed, you know, units going against one another. It'll be a lot of fun.
Patrick.
Yeah, DQ, Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Obviously, one of the biggest things that needed to happen for you guys to bounce back defensively were the household names, Micah Parsons, Tank, Leighton Vander Esch bouncing back and having great games. But when you look at a guy like Neville Gallimore, who flashed often yesterday against the Patriots, from your view, what have you seen from him from training camp to now? Do you feel like he's finally broken through in his progression?
I thought, to use a baseball analogy, I thought we were really strong down the middle. The defensive tackles, the linebackers, the safeties, and you better be strong inside there. But it was great to see Neville make a couple of plays using that quickness. You guys have seen that, how quick he is for a big guy. He can really beat you to the spot. I think we saw that on a draw that he had a tackle for loss and one that he had a good movement on. So for him to make some of those plays, I think it was good for us, and it just kind of shows we got a big, deep crew. That's what you need, to roll, not just Hank and Osa, but Mozzie and him and those four together and Chauncey, like that brings a lot of energy when these big guys can get flying. And Nev has really shown that, I thought in this last game that really came through.
Coach Aisha Morrison, Cowboys.com. You talked about instincts with DaRon Bland earlier. Another player that's emerged to show his instincts is Thomas. He seems to have a really good feel for the run game. How impressed have you been with his improvement and his jump that he's made?
Yeah, isn't that the best when you see somebody take the spot from year 1 to year 2 or 2 to 3, and you want to keep seeing that continued improvement. But when Donovan went down, it was, I believe, on the first day of training camp, and Wanye got more reps. I think he saw it in the preseason. There was a play, and there was another play, and there was one. So you kept gaining confidence in the skill set of his. He's always played with great energy. He's been a good tackler. I think that transfers over for him on the special team side. One thing that we're not probably seeing, you guys know more than me, but around the league in terms of kickoff returns that come out and punt returns that go, we may not see some of the tackles that we normally have had from a guy who has a real key role like Wanye on special teams. But to see him come in and make that tackle and make those plays, I think it shows you what we think of him, as a tackler. And he's continuously improving. And so that's kind of one of the fun parts of these young players when they keep making that progress. You keep going, and we're giving him a lot of reps at practice, he and others. Bell is another one that I thought, you're seeing him make these linebacker plays. And so it makes me super happy to see the two of those guys taking their steps and making progress. Both of them, kind of came in the same way and did a lot of cool things. So I'm excited to see where their journey is going. But so far, I'm encouraged with both of them.
Michael Galpin, Dallas Morning News. On the 4th and 1 in the second quarter, you guys got a wreck at the short yardage play that the Eagles popularized. What do you think of the way that your group handled that? And also, is that a good exercise for your group to have that look at it?
Yeah, I think what started with one team, there's more that are doing it, especially on the one that's inches. I'm certain for the officials, it's super hard to even mark. There's like 27 guys in this one mosh pit, and so what I loved about the play was just the shoulder battle of the guys winning. I saw Mozzie and Nev and Chauncey and the guys so low, and that's a big play. So to have 2 4th down stops, one Bland had the interception on, but creating the takeaways was big. But having a 4th down stop in your own territory, that was big. And so, yeah, we've been working hard on that, Michael, the sneak play, because it's not just Philly. There's going to be others that do it as well. And it takes work, it takes practice, and it's hard to because of the contact and what you want to be safe. But it's definitely a part of the teams and what they're doing. So we want to work at it too.
What are your general thoughts about that play?
I think you better get really low, because the push part of it, I know we're saying that's not as much. It helps, but it's not the overriding factor. To me, it's who can win the battle inside. You see these splits so tight, and the pad level of the guard and the center, and how can you get under somebody? That's when the push, if they're going to push, we got to push some as well. And I imagine it's really tough to, you're talking about inches, Al Pacino inches, So it's like, as you're going for it, it's really hard to find that space. But if you can jump the count and really get underneath somebody, I think you got a real shot at it.
You like that movie?
I did like that movie, yes.
Dan, how much will last year's playoff game be part of the process in getting ready for this week, even though they've had 4 games?
Yeah, probably more so than the previous year's game, just because they're so much different than the 21 game against them. Christian wasn't with them there. Purdy wasn't, playing quarterback in that spot. So it'll be a part of our plan, but each year there's some new wrinkles, some new things that teams do, us included. So it's a part of the breakdown, but not the main part of it. The other 4 games are just as important. So it's one of the, games that we'll include in that.
When you were together with Kyle, did you see him becoming as successful head coach when y'all were.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's really squared away. Kyle could coach any position on the offense. He could be an offensive line coach, quarterback coach, tight ends. He was that equipped, and I thought that was one of the rare things, from a coordinator standpoint. He had such good detail in every single area, and especially in the run game. Oftentimes, an offensive coordinator may have gotten their acumen on the way up, being a quarterback person or somebody that had great strength in the passing game. But one of Kyle's superpowers was he hit every job on the way up, so he knows the run game, he knows that, and so I think that's a real advantage for him. That why their run game is so strong is he's at the front and center of it, and so that's one of my biggest compliments for him, and I think that just carries over into the head coaching spot for him.
Is any of that run game dated back to what his dad did in that scheme, or is it
You know
different?
what? Early there was some things, and that would have been probably more like we were in Atlanta. We were a wide zone and keepers off of that. And now I'd say they're just as much gap scheme and pullers, which his dad didn't do. And they had a fantastic line coach during that time, and Alex Gibbs. And you couldn't get him to pull a lineman. I mean, that was not part of his process. So you want power? Yeah, okay, we'll do that. But but they were so equipped in that. And I think any system, whether you're a gap scheme or a zone scheme, you better be excellent at those things and then have the play passes that go off it. If your play passes don't look like your run games, well, they're really not that effective. So one of the things that, Kyle and his father certainly had was the run looked like the keeper coming out. And here the power looks like the gap, a trap pass coming down the field. So when you can marry a run look to a pass protection look, now there's something. That's where you get the advantage, because the linebacker, do I go downhill and try to take this on? They try to rip one behind me, or do I stay back and they're trying to run the ball? So when you can make those two marry together, the run looks and the play passes, that's when I think you can really get humming, because if you're just one or the other, most time you can scheme through that to say, hey, this is an all passing team, we're going to deploy everybody back, or this is an all running team, we're going to put everybody down. But when you have the ability to do both, I think that's what makes an offense special.
Yeah, and yesterday a couple of players mentioned that beyond the personal pride from what happened in Arizona, they also wanted to redeem themselves for you in terms of your reputation or whatever. How important is that to have players buying into you and what you're selling them, and how do you as a coach create that culture to where players want to play for you in that way?
Well, they play for one another, and that's the best part of this group. I love what they are, and after 2 and 3 years now, getting to know their why, their purpose of how important it is to them. So that's why I was so certain that they would come back, because there wasn't one time where there was a blame of someone else. And if you have that, that's dangerous. I played good, but so-and-so didn't. That was not the case at all. And that's when I knew we're standing in pretty solid ground, because of we were all upset with ourselves, not with anybody else, not once. And we just wanted to make sure that doesn't happen again, and being square and on it and going. So it was painful to go through, and you don't like it. But if we can't all learn the lessons together to make sure that they don't happen again, then the pain of going through that loss wasn't for anything. And so it was, you want to take the lesson without taking the failure. And in that instance, I thought there's a lot of guys that took the lesson, and myself included, to make sure we're just hitting on every possible spot. And every time we go, we got to bring our speed. We've got a fast group and a big, deep group. So let's make sure every time we get to showcase that.
Nick?
Hey Dan, Nick Harris, DallasCowboys.com. Since Dante Fowler has gotten here, what have you seen him contribute to the pass rush group as a whole? And then yesterday's play, how cool was that to see?
Yeah, I think what he has a real knack for, and you have to look it up on the sacks, how many forced fumbles he has. He can really bend, and the thing I can remember looking down at the iPad afterwards is how low he was underneath him. And so that was an example of like a play pass where he was able to react quickly and get his rush going. It wasn't a play that he would have naturally been in a pass rushing situation, but he saw a look and an indicator that said, I got to go here. And that's what makes I think him unique and special, is that he can see when it alerts there and tell the guys and get it rolling.
Jeff?
Just as far as Pro Football Network, speaking of that play, what was it like for you to see Leighton get in the end zone for his students?
Yeah, I was so pumped for him, and I did not know this till afterwards. That was my first one since high school, and I was like, wow, that's cool. So it was great to see that to go. We were really trying to emphasize, trying to force some fumbles, and we didn't get out as many as we thought you know, we were really trying to go attack that way from the quarterback to the running backs. And they did a good job, you know, talking about their running backs. Like I said, they were tough and strong, but it was a really cool play. And it's always fun when, like, one player creates a play for another one. And those are some of my favorite ones where the pass gets deflected and another one picks it to go, or a fumble happens and someone else gets it, because that's kind of truly the brotherhood of it all. When nothing wrong with Bland stepping in front and scoring. I love that too. But when it happens in connection with others, it's a lot of fun because it's a shared takeaway.
Last one, Clarence.
You talked about Shannon's superpowers. Is it an advantage for you guys, your knowledge of him, that's, you know, and what he does, and your work with him?
No, I don't think so. No, I wish it was. Hell, I'd use it if I had that as a superpower. It's always a good matchup. I've faced against Kyle a number of times, and he's just one of the very best there is. He's a great, you know, not just from a game plan, but calling the game. And sometimes that's as important as it is. You go into a game thinking it's going to be one way, and you got to be able to adjust and move and go. And I think that's what makes him strong and unique, because you may start one way, but if that ain't working, he's going to go and attack it in another way. And I think that's the mark of a good play caller. When your first part isn't what you thought, you got to adjust and do it, and he's fully equipped to do that.
So you don't know him as well as any coordinator would?
That's not what you asked. You asked, was it my superpower? So it's a good question, and it's going to be a hell of a matchup. So, all right, thank you, guys.
Joe wait on the injury report for the punches you were giving him on the?
Probably, yeah. It's a bad spot to be next to me on game day some days, so I got to maybe move into the. If we get more takeaways, he'll be gladly take some of those hits on his shoulders. So, all right, thank you, guys. See you.